Hello! So today we're going to have a look at how to download and install RStudio. So RStudio is basically an IDE or an integrated development environment for the programming language R, which is specialized in statistical computing and graphics. So if you go to Google and type in RStudio, the top link is to posit.co, which is the official website. So if we click onto that, it says most trusted IDE for open source data science. You can click accept all and the cookie's there. And then there's a blue download RStudio button in the top right. So if you click on that, and then it takes you here whether you want RStudio desktop or RStudio server. RStudio server if you're intending to run it on the server. If you just want to download it to your own computer to use, click RStudio desktop, which is the default. And then you can find out more about RStudio Desktop Pro below. But we're just going to click on download RStudio for the moment. And then it's used by millions of people weekly. So the first thing we have to do, we've got a two-step install process. We've got to install R. So RStudio requires R 3.3.0. Choose a version of R that matches your computer's operating system. And then we need to install RStudio itself. So if we download and install R first, it's important that we do this the right way around. That will take us to cran.rstudio.com. And we have to download the right one for our system. So it's available for Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. If you click download R for Windows, and then we've got the base binaries for the base distribution. This is what you want to install R for the first time. Okay, and the other ones we can ignore for now. So the first thing we need base. So if we click on base, then out to our version 4.2.3. If we have a quick look over here, it says it requires 3.3.0 plus. So the plus means we can use a later version. So we're going to download our 4.2.3 for Windows. It's 77 megabytes, 64 bits. We'll click download on that, and that will begin downloading to our computer. So remember, we've got to install R first before RStudio works. And this version works on Windows 10. It will also work on Windows 11, as we are going to show now. And once this is finished downloading, we just need to single click on it and it will open up the install file for us. First thing we'll expect is user access control, because any installer is going to need to make changes to our system. So user access control pops up. R for Windows 4.2.3 setup, verified publisher is Martin Plummer. So we're going to click yes on that. And when we start the install for this, select setup language, so language choose to install. There's many different languages. It should default to your own system language, which in our case is English. We're going to press OK on that. It's released under the GNU General Public License, so the 1991 version, which you've probably read a million times before. You have to agree to that, so we'll click next. Default location to install is C, program files R, and then the version number, so R 4.2.3 in this case. You can click browse to select a different folder, but we recommend leaving it in the default folder and pressing next. We've got the main files then, 64-bit files, so both of those need to be checked. 64-bit files less so, but if you've got running the 64-bit system, you might as well install that. And message translations, it's only 9 megabytes. You can uncheck that if you don't want any translations in, but it only takes up a few megabytes. So once we've left all those ticked, we can press next. Do you want to customize the startup options? You can either accept the defaults or yes for a customized startup. So if we click yes to customize it, please specify MDI or SDI, then select next. So one big window or separate windows. We're going to leave it with the default recommendation of one big window. Please specify plain text or HTML help. Plain text help is old school, like from the 90s, basically just text files. HTML help will be interactive, have links that you can navigate, so it will be easy to use HTML help, so we'll leave that checked. Start menu folder, it's going to put it itself in a folder called R, which is very logical. Again, if you want to select a different folder, you can click on Browse, select a folder, or create a new one. If you don't want to create a start menu folder, you can check that box, but we will leave that unchecked, so it does create a folder. And then you can select to create a desktop shortcut, allow you to find it easier. Create a quick launch shortcut down here if you want by checking that, or you can leave it unchecked. Registry entries, save the version number in the registry. That'll help it with updates and determining which version you've got. And associate R with R data files. Well, our data files need to be opened up with R, so there's no hazard in leaving that checked there, which we would recommend. And then once you click next, it's going to install R onto the computer. So remember, this is step one of getting RStudio installed. If you install RStudio without R, it won't work, because it's kind of fundamental to what we're doing here. So that's busy extracting all the files. It shouldn't take too long at all. And there we go. It's finished the setup. We can click finish to exit. There's nothing to load up at the moment. We want to leave it there, and we're back to the cran.rstudio.com website, which we can now close down. We're back to the download page there, so we've completed step 1. Now on to step 2, install RStudio. So we've got a button here to download RStudio desktop for Windows, which we're going to click. And it says it's 208.08 megabytes, but we can actually see it's 198 megabytes. So you have got the hash there of the file in case you want to check it. And the version that they're on at the moment is 2023.03, so it has been released this month. 0 plus 386, so it was released on the 16th of March, so only last week. And once that's finished downloading, we can then begin to install RStudio. So RStudio itself does require a 64-bit operating system. If you're on a 32-bit system, you can use an older version of RStudio. So if we open that quickly, older versions that are available, once you go in there, you can click View Previous Versions, and it will take you basically to all the older versions here. You can see a table of context of all the 2022 and 2021 versions there. So if we click on the 2022 version and go to Installers, does it have a 32-bit installer? So it's released on the 14th of December. It's going to tell us everything that was installed in it. And we go all the way down. These are still on 64-bit versions there, so we'd have to go back further. If we go back to 2021, September. So we've got Windows again here. These look like 64-bit versions. We've got 64-bit versions all the way there, so it looks like we'd have to go even earlier than those versions that it's showing us. View previous versions. Can we go beyond that? Okay, it looks like it's been quite a while now since they've had the 32-bit version. So 32-bit versions might be out, even though the website says an older version of RStudio may do. You may have to look at an alternative website. But once it's finished downloading, if you single-click on the RStudio installer file, that will then open up. Again, it will come to user access control to ask us permission to change the hard disk, which needs to do when it's installing files. Verified publisher is RStudio PVC, so we're going to click yes on there. And then it takes us to the RStudio setup, which is going to guide us through the rest of the process. So on the welcome screen, we're going to click next. Again, the default folder is RStudio within program files, which is absolutely fine. It's going to require 821.5 megabytes of disk space. If you click browse, you can select a different folder, but we are going to leave it there and press next. RStudio is going to go in the RStudio file that's going to create the start menu. If you don't want to create start menu shortcuts, just click the do not create shortcuts button. Otherwise, leave that unchecked. You can customize that up there, but RStudio belonging in the RStudio folder in the start menu makes a lot of sense. And then there's nothing else to customize. If we click on install, we begin there. It is a larger file, so it's going to take longer to install. The first thing it's doing is extracting all the files from the installer. They've been compressed before we downloaded so that we could have a smaller download file size. You can click on show details and it'll show you exactly what it's doing. Sometimes this is fun to watch. It can slow down ever so slightly the installer, but only by a few seconds, because obviously it's having to print all this out to screen. It's busy extracting all the files that it needs for RStudio, and once it's done that, it will proceed to install them. So you can see there's an awful lot of files for it to extract that are part of RStudio, but they will go very, 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 very fast. As you can see, they're going faster than we can actually read here. And this is all the core part of installing RStudio. There's some big files, libclang, that's a big one, libclang again, .dll. So the DLLs will help RStudio application work. Has downloaded extracting some fonts there, some of the additional tools, some JavaScript files. Basically everything that you need for RStudio is now being installed as we speak. If you've included the message translations, it will install them and extract them. It's creating the shortcut now, and that's it. It's finished installing RStudio. So if we click finish, the setup is now complete, and we can close the browser window because we don't need that anymore. You can see there's a link to R there on the desktop. So if we double click R, this was the first thing we installed, remember, and it should open up as one big window. So this is it, the R GUI and the R console, which is basically like the command line for using R. So as you can see, it's come up there. We can type demo, and it will show us some demos that you can run so that you can see what R is capable of. If we close that now, Nope, we won't save this time. If we go to the Start menu, RStudio didn't ask us to create a desktop icon, so you'll have to go Start. Recently installed, we've got RStudio. If we single click on RStudio, it will take a little while. Furious clicking there. First time it's loading up, obviously it will be configuring for first time use, so it might take a little longer than it otherwise would. I think we've opened it twice there in our excitement. Yep, so we'll close that. So choose our installations. This is the first time setup now. RStudio requires an existing version of R. Please select the version you want to use. So use your machine's default 64-bit version of R. You can use a 32-bit version of R or choose a specific version. So this is the version that we've just installed. That's on our desktop here. Or if you leave use your machine's default 64-bit version of R, what it will mean is when we update this, it will actually use the updated version. If you choose a specific version, even once you update it there, it will continue using the old version. So for the majority of people, unless you've got a specific use case where you want to use a specific version, you should just leave it on use your machine's default 64-bit version of R. Rendering engine, you can select it for desktop or software. Auto detect is recommended. It will pick the one that is going to get you the best performance. And then once you press OK on there, it will start committing these saving these settings to memory. You'll see the R splash screen in the background, and then RStudio will open up. And just like any other development environment, it will, pop up with your console terminal, background jobs, the environment. This will be familiar to anyone that's used RStudio before. First time running, it will also ask to enable automated crash reporting. So maybe upload crash reports to RStudio automatically. It doesn't contain personal information, but does contain your IP address. It can be disabled later under global options. So if you're really concerned about privacy and you're not that keen on helping out RStudio developers automatically fix your crashes that you experience, you can click the No button. If you're not happy to send your IP address in any crash report, you can click Yes. For now, we're going to click No. As we say, that can be changed in global settings. And there we have it. There's RStudio fully installed. So we've got the console there. We've got the terminal here. Windows Defender will pop up, say it's blocked speech to the app because it's a new app. But there is no reason why you can't allow access through Windows Firewall, which will actually mean that it can communicate with the servers that it requires. Background jobs, when you configure any background jobs, you can select them here, press Start, or you can clean up after a background job. And the environment, history, connections, and tutorial tabs are all available here. There's a special learner package. If you are new to RStudio and want to learn how to use it, you can click there to install the learner package. And then below, there's just your file navigation, packages that are installed, so you can check and uncheck these. You always need the R-base package. Additional plugins and packages may be needed depending on what you are using R for. Help resources, this is all in HTML, so select it so you can literally click on any of the resources. You get an introduction to R, so if we click on that, all that will open up here. And as you can see, because we've picked HTML help, we can actually click on the links that will take us exactly where we need to go on there. There's the viewer to view the results and a presentation tab as well. And that's it. Welcome to RStudio, all fully installed with the latest version of R configured. So hope that helps. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more tech related videos. We shall see you shortly. Bye.